Hi, Sandman here. I'm looking at the Invincible Iron Man #4 Heroes Reborn version. We got a Whilce Portacio cover, Christmas theme for some reason, for something that came out in February. If you guys don't know, Heroes Reborn was when Marvel decided to farm out their four main heroes: Captain America, Avengers, Iron Man, and Fantastic Four, to Image comic creators, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee. Jim Lee ended up taking Fantastic Four and Iron Man. Whilce Portacio ended up being the artist for Iron Man. So the reason Marvel did this is because from the 80s on till where we are in 97 here, the most popular books were the X-Men books, especially in the 90s. They're just killing it over everything. And books like Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four weren't doing as well, though they should have been. They kind of got neglected under Marvel, and they never ended up getting, very rarely had a good creative team assigned to them. They were kind of treated like secondhand. Those books weren't given the attention they deserved or assigned to decent creative teams. So they decided to farm out the talent to Image. And things went off the rails pretty quick. We're on issue 4 here, and we already have fill-in artist Ryan Benjamin. I know him mostly from Batman books in Grant Morrison era. I think he did Batman Beyond. I don't know. My first impression of his art was I didn't really care about his art that much. It was okay. It didn't blow me away. He wasn't my favorite. But looking back at this issue, it's actually a lot better than I remembered. See, at the time, this really annoyed me. It used to annoy me when Image Comics would have fill-in artists who tried to draw like them. See, even here you could tell, Ryan Benjamin's aping Whilce Portacio's style. At the time, it really annoyed me. It really stood out. It looked terrible to me, but in hindsight now, this looks really good. You gotta love how he draws women there. Looks great. And the stylized panel layouts, really good. Going back to the credits here, you see they even brought in Scott Lobdell with Jim Lee to do his story. Scott Lobdell is probably one of the luckiest men in the comics industry. When all the Image guys left their Marvel books, John Byrne briefly took over the X-Men books, but then was quickly left those books, and Scott Lobdell ended up taking over those books on the writing, basically just by happening to be in the right place at the right time. He was walking by Bob Harris's office, and they were on a tight deadline, so Bob just gave him the job. He never did any work previous that I know of. I think he's a comedian by trade. But this led to a very long and profitable career for him at Marvel. He ended up writing pretty much everything X-Men. Kind of was the captain of the mutant books, and still to this day works under Bob Harris at DC doing books. So yeah, he did pretty well financially, I'm guessing. But anyways, moving on. Yeah, so this is really great art. I'm really liking it a lot more than I did when I initially So yeah, here's the Iron Man armor redesigned. One thing I'll stop and say right now, like when they announced this Heroes Reborn, I was really excited because I've been collecting Iron Man since the mid 100s. But since I think it was around the 250s, Marvel just started neglecting Iron Man. They started putting subpar artists and writers on them, like Len Kamansky, and I can't remember the artists. They were so unremarkable. And back then, I collected series rather than stories or artists, so I hung on to that book for a long time, a lot longer than I should have. It was terrible, but I had a loyalty to it. Kept suffered through so many bad artists. It was so frustrating. And then when Heroes Reborn came, I was like, oh, Whilce Portacio, he's going to be drawing. I was so excited. And then Jim Lee did an initial sketch of the Iron Man armor, and it looked awesome, like incredible. It didn't have this weird chin piece. It seems like when the issue finally came out, when the first issue came out, they had modified the armor a bit. I'm guessing maybe Whilce Portacio was given a chance to refine it to make it more something suitable for him to draw. And most of the changes didn't work for me. I don't know, just that bottom chin piece, just to make that kind of fox mouth, kind of goofy. It was a lot better without that chin piece when Jim Lee drew it. If you could do a Google search for that original Jim Lee Heroes Reborn Iron Man design, they should have went with that design. It looked so much better. And I have to say, like, for most Image comics when they first came out, generally comics were a 15-minute read, but the Image comics dropped that down to 5 minutes. This comic here is actually pretty wordy, and it took about 15-20 minutes to read, actually. So that was quite impressive. That's probably because of Lobdell. He's used to doing all this kind of dialogue for X-Men books, which are really dialogue heavy. So that helped out in that regards. And I like the shots, like there's a above the head shot. They change it up all the time. It's not this typical front-on shot. Can't remember what they call it, static shot or something like that. And there's some like interesting shots like this with the face dissolving into him sitting there. And there's Pepper. Pepper looks like she's Asian in this. I don't know if she's supposed to be or if that's just me reading too much into it. When I first saw this, it looked like she had white hair, but it looks like it is blonde here. Then we got this guy just shows up in his office as they're talking about Iron Man stuff. Luckily, you never heard. But yeah, I don't know, this art is like really better than I remembered it. It's just, I don't know, I'm gonna have to check out Ryan Benjamin again to see how his modern stuff is like. And yeah, he ends up being the Living Laser. Fun fact, Living Laser was the first villain of the first Iron Man comic I've ever bought. It was like, it's the one with the first stealth armor, the black stealth armor. That was the first Iron Man comic I ever bought. And I ended up collecting it for years. I ended up quitting midway through Kurt Busiek's run. Not because it was bad, but just because I ended up quitting comics for a bit. And oh my, like this shot's amazing. Like that chest piece is another thing I didn't like about. I think it was originally a circle in Jim Lee's design, but that shot's amazing. Like to see that in a movie, him rising out of steamy water, that'd be incredible. So we got some subplot here with Doc Samson, pre-Doc Samson, and Bruce Banner. We got some interesting choreography here, fight choreography. Yeah, that just looks goofy, that chain piece. Yeah, so that's about it. This is a pretty good comic, a lot better than I remembered. I think when I first saw this, I was just super annoyed that Whilce Portacio was not drawing it. Like, that shot's good, like over the shoulder angle. And then there's Pepper, super blonde there, looking good. Like Ryan Benjamin and Whilce Portacio, just they both draw women so well. And then there's Whirlwind, which is a horrible design. This is good. I don't remember this at all. This must have failed hard. Revved up with the trailblazing creative team of Ivan Velez Jr., Pop Man. This Ghost Rider looks so goofy. This would be like after they abused Danny Kench Ghost Rider by like force feeding him like a Big Mac to the audience, overusing him to the point where he got unpopular after being so popular. Ghost Rider has never recovered since. Everything they've tried since then has been minor success, if at all. But anyways, that's all I have to say about this issue. Yeah, click subscribe please, and click on the bell icon for notifications. And tell me what you think of this. Tell me what you think of Heroes Reborn, Whilce Portacio, Ryan Benjamin, this whole fiasco. Yeah, that's everything. Thanks. Bye.